This section builds off of the prior one. And if you haven't seen the one about systems thinking and first principles, you might want to look at that first, but you don't need to. This is about how to deal with complexity. The key point to remember is that it's about relationships. Systems are about the relationships between the components. This does get a little theoretical, and to be candid, you don't need to know this to use Amplio, but a lot of people talk about complexity, so I kind of wanted to put in my view because it's not a minority view. There's just this split in the camp. I mean, I talk a lot to Don Reinertson and Tom Guild, and I think this is somewhat comparable in how they think as well. So lessons learned is that a real enemy is nonlinearity caused by complexity, not complexity itself. Okay, this is very important. Okay, and I'll get into nonlinearity, but it means a small thing makes a big impact. The straw that broke the camel's back. Okay, so we know product development is complex, so I don't have to worry about it. Are we in a complex domain? Yes. The people doing it are part of a complex adaptive system. Yes, we know this. It's not a question of if, but it's worth noticing that there are different levels of complexity. There's the workflow, which I'm suggesting is not as complex as it looks. There is some intertwining, it's more complicated. The real difficult part of the workflow is getting people to do it. It's the people in the workflow, not the work in the workflow that's complex. In other words, how do people react to things? Okay, creating the product is complex. We don't know what people really want. We can get some guidance by looking at how they work in the customer journey, as I've described. What's the market like? Notice it's getting progressively more complex. You know, black swan events could hit us. Maybe things not as big as that could hit us. COVID, the Ukraine war, these things happen. What does that do? And actually, it creates some opportunity. Think of the companies that actually were geared toward people working from home. It created opportunities for them. More important, it created opportunities for those who weren't set up that way, but could move in that direction. See, the successful companies, the really successful companies of the last few years have been ones that have been responding to the changing market and the world. So that's kind of what we want to see. So what causes? I want to look at what causes disasters or waste for us. We often talk and think about, you know, nuclear things like that, but, you know, like nonlinear chaotic events are due to a combination of things. They're due to some little thing happens. Okay, actually, that's maybe a bad title. They're like one person with key information. These are examples of a nonlinear event. The straw that broke the camel's back, one person with key information not being available. The English units to metric conversion thing with the NASA's climate orbiter. The enemy is not complexity in our field. Okay, it is in other areas. In fact, a book I read is by Charles Perrault, Normal Accidents. He was the guy who investigated 3 Mile Island. And he did the investigation and then he said, wow, this is really interesting stuff. And he was concerned, and fortunately he was wrong on this total concern. He was concerned we'd have a lot more nuclear reactor problems. The fact that the more you tried to prevent them, the more you are likely to cause them, because it just got more complex as you went. And he has in his diagram, in his book, this is a picture of it, where he talks about you can have loose or tight coupling and you can have linear complex reactions. And notice nuclear plants are up here. What happened at 3 Mile Island was basically a valve stuck, and people didn't know what had happened. So they had a lack of visibility. They had some little error. And because they didn't know what to do and they were in a delayed response, it almost melted down. It didn't, but it came pretty close. And there are lessons to be learned from this. But you see, we're down here, but it acts like we're up here, you know, because we have this poor architecture and little things break the system and we're pushing stuff on people. So my goal is, okay, yeah, I know we look like we're here, but we should be here. In other words, we can set up R&D and our development in a way where it's not so coupled and we can see what's going on. And the question is how? And I mentioned this book, Meltdown, because this was a book where it all just hit me. I can still remember this. I was walking, listening to it on an audio book on the beach in Carlsbad, where I used to live. And he talked about what happened at 3 Mile Island. In fact, this is how I got to normal accidents, because he refers to normal accidents. And what they said and got just bam, hit me, was when we have these kind of disasters, when we have these nonlinear events, there's a potentially nonlinear event. I mean, it doesn't always happen. You know what I mean? Like if I'm putting my cat's food down on the floor, chances are I'm not going to have a nonlinear event. Not putting the food down on the floor because it's not going to fall off the floor. Maybe I'll trip on something and I'll hurt myself. That would be a nonlinear event, but it's got to be an event that happens, could trigger something. It's coupled with other events that can cascade. That's what happened at 3 Mile Island. A little thing happened, cascaded in the way they did water. They didn't have direct visibility, so they didn't know what was going on. So you can't correct it. And in fact, they had the inability to fix the problem. I'm going to suggest what we want to do, because we're not in the physical world where things are locked. We don't really know when there is a potentially nonlinear event, almost by definition, but we know they're out there. So what we want is to stop the cascading. We want to decouple things. We want to have visibility. And we want to be able to fix the problem when it's detected, meaning we can't have to pivot. Oh, I think that's an agile concept, isn't it? The ability to pivot, the ability to change where you're going. But now we're not talking about the individual writing stories. We're not talking about the team doing sprints. We're talking about the company as a whole able to pivot. This is actually kind of anti-fragility. I'll add that as a reference. A great book, but I'm not going to go into it this minute. Quick feedback in managing WIP creates the ability to pivot. This is an assertion. By that, I mean, I'm saying something I believe to be true that I have evidence for. And I would ask you to take a minute and look in your own experience. It's because I'm always saying assertions, like I'm saying this is true, but I want you to come from your experience. A lot of the things I say, people can validate from their own experience. This is why talking theory is useful. Okay, I made a theory here. Quick feedback in managing WIPs creates the ability to pivot. Well, when did you not have quick feedback? When did you not manage your work in process? Were you able to pivot at a low cost? I suspect no. Now, there might be other factors involved. That's true. Maybe these aren't sufficient, but they're pretty good. We want all of this. Lean is not about going slow to go faster. We want all these things I'm talking about here. It's about getting faster feedback to eliminate the creation of waste. You then get value delivered faster because you have less to do than you would otherwise have to do. In other words, lean is about not doing wasteful work. In manufacturing, that means you see it, you don't create a problem and fix it. In software, it means we get feedback so we're working on the right thing. Now, it also provides you what's of greatest value, and it enables you to respond to anything you don't know because of complexity. Okay, sorry. Here's my contention. In a complex world, what you need to do is detect the things you can't see and respond to them quickly. And that feedback will get that to you. Visibility will get that to you. Working on small things will get that to you. Managing your work in process, so you don't have a lot you got to shut down to go on to the next thing. So you're not wasting things. So you don't have big batches of work where you wasted your time. That if you do this, you can respond to what you don't see. And here's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is that this is what you want to do to build the right software. Remember inherent simplicity, things work together. This is the brilliance of this approach. That's not my approach. Well, maybe it is, but I've distilled this from other people in saying this stuff. So I'm not saying this is unique. It's unique maybe in how it's been put together. The beauty of it is the way you can deal with complexity is exactly the way you want to be more effective and build the right thing. They go together. They're not in opposition with each other. This is the choice for the inherent simplicity by Goldratt. You put Goldratt, Deming, and Akoff together along with the general principles of Chris Alexander and Timeless Way of Building, you've got something really brilliant. And I'm just giving you pieces at a time. Okay, now there's more good news. See, when you're not given the why of a practice, you just said, follow until you understand or do this. It's not a good thing. It's a problem. And actually, the metaphor I hear is like master carpenters. Instead of follow until you understand, you should say, do this and here's why, okay? If you're not given the why, then you don't understand. You may follow until you understand, but given the why to understand, the motive is very important. Like a master carpenter, they often talk about about, well, they tell us what to do and we don't see what's going on. But a master carpenter is going to say, we're going to cut with the grain to get a smooth cut. And they'll talk about, see the grain here? See the cross grain here? We're going to cut with the grain. Now, he's not asking them what to do. He's telling them, here, cut with the grain. But now they know why, and they can see the result of their action, and you learn, okay? There's no guiding practice when if there's no guiding practice, that people can see on their own, they can't relate to it. See, what I did with the first principles enables you to relate to things, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. You have some experience. Now, if you take somebody off the street, that's a different story. But we want to access their dormant knowledge. That's an important thing. So why do it, and what are the first principles? Oops. Why do it? One of the first principles enable you to provide guidance to people. Now, I know sometimes even the Karate Kid episode, the Miyagi thing, I mean, yeah, that's brilliant. But first of all, I'm not really sure that would be the best way to have done it. But second of all, that's teaching people karate. Okay. The only reason you need karate in the agile space is if you've got really pissed off customers and you need to fight them off. Oh, joke, sorry. The thing is, understanding is important. In martial arts, the first thing you're trying to do is stop the mind from thinking because it gets in your way. So shutting the brain down in martial arts is a good thing. In our world, it's not a good thing. And it has very strong damage. This is another insight from Goldratt. A comfort zone has less to do with control and more to do with knowledge. When management gets into a command and control, all they're doing is going back to their comfort zone. And if you're not giving them the why, you're causing that, or you're not causing it, but you're contributing to it. So a lot of the problems we get in management is because people aren't given the why. They're just said, do this, do this. Management, who's made a livelihood probably of going up the chain by solving problems, and now you're telling them, oh, we don't want you to solve our problems. Let us work on our own. Well, actually, we want them to solve the problems of the environment they live in, and we need them to understand why we need to obey these first principles and use the factors for effective value streams. And if you don't do this, expect management to go back to their comfort zone, which is often command and control. Be aware we are causing that to some level. So the main thing here on is that the bottom line is quick feedback in managing work in process basically enables us to deal with complexity at all levels. This means a focus on finishing, by the way. Probably heard that before, at the story level, at the feature level, at the release level, all the way through. There's this focus on finishing because it gets us things done. There's more I could add here, but I just wanted to mostly get this point across.